80 years ago, during the night of November 9th and 10th, 1938, coordinated attacks against Jews occurred throughout Nazi Germany and its annexed territories. Thousands were arrested, Jewish homes and shops were destroyed, and synagogues were burned down. The violence came to be known as Kristallnacht, or the Night of Broken Glass, due to the On November 7th, 1938, a young Polish Jew named Herschel Grinspan walked into the German embassy in Paris. He shot a Nazi diplomatic officer, Ernst von Rath. Nazi propaganda minister Josef Goebbels delivered a fiery speech, using the killing as pretext for retaliation. On November 9th, 1938, Nazi paramilitary forces and civilians began demolishing Jewish homes and other buildings throughout Germany and the annexed parts of Austria and Czechoslovakia. The German authorities looked on without intervening.
Fleischer here. Here's a question. What the hell happened in Amsterdam? What is that all about? A pogrom in our time?
The hunting down, the narrow escapes, the hiding of identity all carry a dark echo of the last century.
Persecution of Germany's Jews.
This man telling his attacker, "I'm not Jewish," and beaten anyway.
The days of just speaking have ended.
Nazi propaganda riled the Nazi base into an anti-Semitic frenzy.
And intentionally directing attacks against a civilian population of extermination.
Where it came out that they allowed officers to choose not to be active during demonstrations that are pro-Israel or protect synagogues. They adjusted the time schedules of the police officers that had moral issues with protecting these places.
Wow.
The senior police command allowed that. Now,
And a lot of police officers indeed take that opportunity?
A lot of Muslim police officers, yeah, and I think that signal combined with what happened last week is something that's very worrying. And I think they're the woke people, and they don't understand. They do or don't understand what they're saying, but they for sure don't understand that they are the next ones, and they're just being used as useful idiots.
These are Dutch folks.
Yeah,
the Dutch church. And pro-Palestine, but I don't know if they care. They've lost their identity.
Exactly. That's exactly the thing. They don't have an identity, and this whole pro-Palestine thing provides them some kind of identity. I don't know. It's very difficult, and the whole woke-ism pretty much robs people from an identity. And then Islam is a very strong alternative. It's very clear. They're very clear who they are. They know what their identity is. So they fill up a vacuum of the people that don't have a religion anymore. And I
like the way that you say that it fills a vacuum. In my opinion, it's actually the first step that jihadism sends in. It's actually a weapon. It's a weaponized vacuum, right? It's wokeness is weaponized in order to vacate identity and then swoop in with this uber masculine control identity, and it fills that vacuum. But I find that they work hand in hand, those two forces.
Yeah, it's very strange. I still never succeeded to understand why the woke side would work together with Islam.
It's one of the great mysteries of the Red-Green Alliance. But the bottom line is that the first step is wokeism. It weakens the immune system,
right?
Which is identity, which is societal defense. It weakens all those things. It weakens the family unit. Then jihadism swoops in. And that's what's happened in Holland and certainly in Belgium and France, right, in England and Germany. And we're really seeing the erosion. And then you have some countries, let's say like Poland, who are like, no, stop that. We're not going to let you in. We're not going to let you erode our country. And they have a zero tolerance policy towards jihadism. And
The event began with an incident that happened a day earlier, during which one of the Maccabi fans was violently attacked and robbed. The local residents identified through the fan's passport that he was a fighter who had served quite a bit of time in the Gaza Strip over the past year and had even uploaded documents from the fighting on social media networks. Hours before the game, widespread incitement was detected in the local Islamist networks, prompting the Mossad and the Ministry of Diaspora to launch preparations for possible trouble. A warning was also sent to the Dutch intelligence and police forces, both orally and in writing. Other warnings were sent through various channels that there was the possibility of violence surrounding the game. To their credit, the Dutch police took the warning seriously and deployed large numbers of officers to the area around the stadium. But shortly after Israeli fans began to leave the area, they were ambushed by squads of Arabic-speaking young men who were waiting for them on the streets that led to the trains and taxis that the Israeli fans were trying to take back to their hotels. According to witnesses, the police response to these attacks was not organized, and in some cases, police officers barely even tried to intervene as attacks took place right in front of their eyes. Several Israelis were injured in these attacks, which included car ramming and stabbings. Women, children, and the elderly were amongst those who were violently attacked, and at least 5 people required medical attention. A few people were missing for several hours before being accounted for, with some hiding in restaurants or clubs for hours, hoping to be rescued by police who never came to their assistance. By Sunday morning, over 2,000 Israelis have been flown back home on special flights sent by the government to rescue them. The Dutch authorities reacted with statements of shock, anger, and determination to confront the violence, and reports surfaced that several dozen people had been arrested in connection with these attacks. But soon, other reports emerged that all but a small handful had been arrested, and even those who remain in police custody might not be charged with anything because of a lack of evidence. The spokeswoman for the police in Amsterdam was quoted in the New York Times as saying that if people are released, it does not mean that they are no longer suspects. Additional arrests can also be made. The investigation is still ongoing. At the same time, she clarified that the indictment had not yet been filed, although Dutch authorities were quick to say that the danger has passed. The IDF advised Israeli travelers that Amsterdam in the Netherlands is under a level 2 travel warning, and therefore it is recommended to take increased precautions when staying in the country, emphasizing the modesty of Israeli symbols as well as vigilance for unusual events in view of the existing sensitivity in Amsterdam, especially following the events. Additionally, Dutch politician Geert Wilders, head of the largest political party in the Dutch parliament, met with Foreign Minister Gideon Saar, who flew to the Netherlands over the weekend. He claims, based on the local report, that all those arrested were arrested during or before the game and not in the riots that happened after. He posted a rhetorical question on X about this, saying no arrests on Thursday night during the hunt for the Jews. He then claimed that the police confirmed to him that all the detainees were arrested during or before the game, adding none of those who participated in the pogrom were arrested. Back in Israel, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs announced on Saturday evening that they had brought 2,000 Israelis home from Amsterdam on 10 rescue flights. During the rescue operation, the Embassy of Israel in the Netherlands opened a special office in Amsterdam, and another dedicated emergency office was opened at the headquarters of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Jerusalem. The teams of the Israeli Embassy in the Netherlands, led by Ambassador Moody Efraim and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Jerusalem, worked to reach all the Israelis who visited the country and issue emergency travel documents to those who had their passports stolen during the pogrom. Meanwhile, Videos circulating online showing the methods used by the attackers, which included checking the passports of those claimed that they were not from Israel, alongside beating and threats, until the phrase "Free Palestine" came out of the throats of the Israeli fans that were attacked. I must make a personal comment on all of this. The mayor of Amsterdam is not ready to say that there was an extreme Muslim element here, preferring to talk about this as if it's just another example of soccer fans letting their enthusiasm for their team get out of hand. European leaders have long closed their eyes to the problem that everyone knows is growing in their midst, because they don't want to be accused of racism or being Islamophobic. Also, Europe is heavily dependent on energy supplies from the Middle East, and they don't want to have problems with the governments of these countries, which are predominantly Muslim. Geert Wilders is one of the few European politicians who has dared to speak the truth about this situation publicly, and as a result, he has to be under heavy police protection around the clock. I will say very plainly that more European leaders need to have the same courage that Wilders has shown and face up to the reality that almost everyone who lives in their countries already knows. This includes ordinary citizens and especially police officers, who we hear from sometimes telling us stories about all kinds of incidents that will never be reported on the big newspapers, who are also afraid to honestly face up to what's going on in Europe. Europe is changing, and this pogrom, which happened in Amsterdam, the Netherlands, is just the most recent and perhaps the most blatant example that we can no longer ignore the situation. It's not too late for Europeans to save their countries and their civilization, but they have to stop gaslighting themselves and face the truth.